Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta. Friday night, and it is July the 22nd. I'm glad to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. A 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and chat room is open. And tonight's topic is sensitive material. I'm talking about child sexual abuse and incest, and been talking about this for a few weeks now, at least, for a while. And, it's a subject that needs to be talked about, but it's definitely not for younger children, and it's not for those who may be sensitive to this type of material. So, I'm just putting a discretionary warning out there. It's graphic material, and it's you have to listen at your own discretion. I'm talking about abuse. I'm talking about child sexual abuse. I'm talking about incest, and so, you have to know what's good for you to listen to, and you have to ultimately know what will bother you, and ultimately you have to make that choice. You are, you are the decision maker for yourself. So you have to decide whether or not you should be listening to a show like this. If you're under the age of 18, you have to have permission to listen to my show. Have an adult or somebody who's older, a parent, caregiver, somebody who's an adult, listen to the show with you to make sure that it's something that you should be listening to age appropriately, because this is not for younger children at all. And it's for adult, mature audiences. And so I did put an explicit warning on it. I did put a graphic warning on it. Actually, I put a graphic warning, really a warning on all of my shows, a discretionary warning on all of my shows, because I'm talking about abuse. And I don't sugarcoat it. I don't believe in minimizing it. I don't believe in telling it like it's not. Abuse hurts. It's horrible. It's horrific. It kills. It destroys. It maims. This is the reason why we're trying to stop this. And, people think it's all fun and games for these kids out here, but it's not. And so I don't mind being a voice out here to be keep everybody in a bit of a reality check. The child sexual abuse and incest doesn't come in a little pretty box with a bow. So this is the issue. I'm really a little adamant about this right now, because I had somebody actually point out to me, like, what's the big deal about CSA? Why are we even talking about child sexual abuse? Because I always talk about child physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, child neglect. I talk about child psychological abuse. I talk about the whole thing, and I also talk about child sexual abuse. And so I happened to post something, because I write and I post all the time, and I posted something on Facebook, and I had somebody put a comment on there in their opinion that they couldn't figure out why all the hype about child sexual abuse. Why are we not talking about physical abuse, verbal? Well, my post, if this person would have read it, said that I was talking about physical abuse, verbal, emotional, psychological abuse, neglect, and child sexual abuse. I also happen to throw in the fact that I was raped and sodomized at the age of 8 years old by my 21-year-old brother. So, the issue is that a lot of people don't want to hear about child sexual abuse. It makes them very uncomfortable. And so you have to know what's good for you to listen to. And you have to make that choice. So you make the right choice for yourself, and you listen at your own discretion to all of my shows, right? Any and all of them. So thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. Tonight I want to talk about this. It's a particular article that I found on this website called it's Carol Boulware, Boulware, MFT, PhD, out of Los Angeles, Santa Monica, Redondo Beach, California. We were sort of looking at this the other night. Adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. What is sexual abuse? We looked at Callie Monroe's website on Wednesday night, and this one I think we covered on Monday night. But I didn't get to finish this one, so I really wanted to sort of scroll down and actually finish some of the stuff that was on here, because this is some good information for people who may not understand the whole ramifications of child sexual abuse, and may not understand why it's so important that we stop child sexual abuse and all abuse, you know what I mean? But this one as well, right? This goes right in there with all the other types of abuse, right? And so, it's very important to talk about this stuff. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. Survivors many times don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. I used to always say that I was molested as a child, or, that I had suffered child sexual abuse, but I'd never name it. You know what I mean? Like, didn't want to name it. Of course, I would tell people that, when I went to the gynecologist when I was 21, they told me I wasn't a virgin, and I had never slept with a man. Let me tell you that. I was raped and sodomized at the age of 8, but I'd never let anybody touch me after that. So, pretty sad, really. This is the sort of thing that people go through. And so, I would just say, oh, well, I was molested as a child or sexually abused. But this is a nice little pretty package, pretty way of saying it. And actually I started to feel like, this is ridiculous to sit there and hide behind the word child sexual abuse when actually it was rape, and it was molestation, and it was child sexual abuse, and it was incest, and it was sodomy and everything else. So, let's just call it what it is. right? Because this is the reality that these little kids are facing out here tonight. Little babies, toddlers will be raped tonight. They'll be sodomized. Little 1-year-old, 2-year-old children, 3, 4-year-old children, month-old babies will be raped tonight. And they will die. And if they don't die, they'll be seriously injured, and they will be messed up for life. I'm telling you that. This is absolutely horrific. This has got to stop, and, I don't mind talking about it. So there you go. Absolutely horrific. No child should ever have to go through this. And, adults need to be, thinking about their sexual, gratification with adults. Seeking other adults who are interested, not kids. Why is there this infatuation, and why has there always been an infatuation since recorded history, since they started writing things down, and even pictorial stuff, of people having sexual relations with children? What's the matter with people? Well, there's a whole lot of people that think that's okay. I mean, probably 2/3 of our society think that that's just fine. The other third says no, it's not. You know what I mean? Children are supposed to be children. Children's bodies are not handled. They're not made for that. It's obvious. Just check out the anatomy of a child's body. Doctors will tell you. Children are not supposed to be having any type of penetration or any type of stimulation like that. That is absolutely ridiculous. Children should be able to find their own sexuality at their own good time, explore their own bodies when they're developmentally start doing that. That's fine, but no adult should be wanting to have anything to do sexually with a child. This is so sick and twisted that, we've got to change the laws, and we need to change the situation, and it needs to change like now. Like tonight would be great, but too bad. So sad. We're going to lose so many children tonight due to abuse and every kind of abuse, right? But so many children will be sexually abused tonight, and then there will be nothing we can do about it. This just really bothers me. And so, I don't mind talking about this, right? So this is what we're talking about here tonight. And this particular article is really quite good. It's from psychotherapist.net, www.psychotherapist.net/adultsurvivors.html. And this is where I got this article from. And it says, what is sexual abuse? Sexual abuse represents any kind of sexual contact between an adult or older teen and a child. This behavior is used to gain power over the child and often involves the betrayal of the child's trust. And sometimes it's not even about power. Sometimes it's about a perversion, right? I mean, a lot of times it's not about power. Like, they say that it is mainly about power, but actually only some of that's about power and control over the child. I mean, not everybody who wants to overpower and control a child will rape a child, right? Not everybody who wants to overpower and control a child will sodomize a child or molest a child, whatever. A lot of it is sexual perversion. They choose, a lot of sexual predators will choose children a certain age because that's what they like. That's what their sexual preference is. Sometimes they'll pick little babies, sometimes they'll pick toddlers. Some child sexual predators and pedophiles prefer kids around, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. They did say on average the 8-year-old is at risk, the most at risk for child sexual abuse. So I did read that somewhere. But anyway, so it's absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. They said there are many types of sexual abuse. Some include physical contact or touching offenses. This includes fondling, touching sexual organs, masturbation, making the child touch the adult sexually and vaginally, or anal penetration with self or objects. Non-touching offenses include exposing a child to pornographic material, indecent exposure, leering, deliberately putting the child in a position of having to witness an act of sexual intercourse. All of that is sexual abuse. What kind of person would victimize a child? People who sexually abuse suffer from emotional immaturity, low self-esteem, an inability to see harm in their actions, and lack the knowledge to control their impulses. Often the offenders were victims of child sexual abuse themselves. Many abusers are not strangers. They are often people of position or power in our lives, such as teachers, doctors, babysitters, neighbors, parents, peers, siblings, relatives, and clergy. And it's almost always a family member. 95% of child sexual abuse is perpetrated by somebody the child knows. The other 5% is the stranger danger. They've never seen this person before, sort of thing. Somebody attacks them in a store, or somebody attacks them, by stealing them out of a parking lot or something. 95% is somebody the child has had contact with before and knows and usually trusts. What do they say about, 35%? It's the parents, right? The other, 35? The other 15% 55% or 60% or whatever it is either a sibling, cousin, grandma, grandpa, relative of some sort, like aunt, uncle, neighbor, friend who comes by the house all the time, another child, right, who plays with it. Children can be sexual abusers too, right? So this is how common is child sexual abuse. It has been shown that 3 to 7% of boys are sexually abused by the time they reach 18. 2 to 5% of girls. On the whole, 2 out of 10 children are victims of abuse. And these averages are, of course, conservative since most occurrences are never reported. That's right. And I mean, even the stats that we see out there everywhere, on just about every website that talks about child sexual abuse, is 1 out of 3 to 4 girls and 1 out of 6 to 7 boys will experience some type of sexual abuse, child sexual abuse under the age of 18. And whether that's unwanted sexual touching, molestation, rape, exploitation, you name it. And so it's really, sadly enough, quite common. So I'm one. So if you know me, then you know one. And they said 1 out of 3 to 4 girls. And I knew a lot of people. I'm not naming names, but I knew a lot of people growing up, a lot of girls who were abused sexually as children. I don't know. I've never had a guy friend come tell me they were sexually abused. But I've actually had quite a few of my friends who were girls confided me that they were sexually abused and raped as children. And it was all perpetrated by their family members. Grandparents, fathers, and what was the other one? Brothers. So, and in my case, it was my brother. So, see, this stuff happens, people. This is not just some sort of pretend, made-up thing. You know what I mean? Like this is reality for kids. And this is a sad, sick, and pathetic, twisted hell of a reality for kids. And if you think it's funny, you got another thing coming. And really, I mean, I just think we need stiffer penalties. I really think that these child sexual predators, when they're found and caught, and found completely guilty, beyond a shadow of a doubt, completely guilty, they should just have to do life. Why should they be allowed to go out and reoffend? Like, why should they be allowed to ever have access to another child again? It's just, to me, it just speaks that our society cares more for the pedophiles and more for the predators than they do for the children, because they're willing to go ahead and let these predators and pedophiles run freely. Because being on those lists, I mean, what a joke. People don't. Those child sexual predators and pedophiles don't quite often check in. They move. They don't check in for a year and then they move. The police and everybody else doesn't know their whereabouts. And they're out roaming around sexually abusing children, right? So you as a parent, you need to know this. You need to keep your children safe, right? And you need to know that you can't. These child sexual predators and pedophiles are actually brothers and sisters of somebody. Right, because it's not just men who abuse. I want everybody to know this. Women are child sexual predators and pedophiles too. And the thing is these people are somebody's relative, right? And can you trust them around children? No. And would you let them in your home? I don't know. It's not a good idea, right? You know what I mean? Like, I certainly wouldn't want to. This is a sad thing. Is I have no idea if my brother actually just sexually used me and only me, or if he actually had used other children too. Was my brother a child sexual predator? I don't know. He killed himself at the age of 33. I never did find out. So, what are you supposed to do? I don't know. Right? It was never reported. My mother didn't report it. She knew about it. Right? Absolutely horrific. The year that I went to the gynecologist was a year after my brother killed himself. So, it was kind of like too late to really pursue it. This is a sad fact. This is a sad thing that this is happening out here, people. It's a reality. And, what are you going to do about it? What are we going to do? Well, we need to protect children is what we really need to do. We need to protect children from grandpa. If you know that grandpa is a fondler or grandma is a fondler, don't let them have access to your children. You know what I mean? If you suspect that so-and-so is spending an awful lot of time around your children, wanting to have a lot of one-on-one contact with your child, you better look into it. Because 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 to 7 boys will be sexually abused in some way under the age of 18. There's a lot of really sick, perverted people out here who like to do things to children that they have no business doing. You know what I mean? So let's get a grip on it, right? This is absolutely ridiculous. So they said that, what are the effects of sexual abuse? First of all, being in your own body. Like, do you feel at home in your own body, right? Do you feel, this will be for survivors, right? Do you feel comfortable expressing yourself sexually with another? Do you feel that you're a part of your body, or does your body feel like it is a separate entity? Have you ever intentionally or physically hurt yourself? Do you find it difficult to listen to your body? Right. This is like things that survivors of child sexual abuse and abuse go through, right? Also from the other types of abuse as well. But this is mainly speaking about child sexual abuse, right? Emotions, right? Do you feel out of control of your feelings? Do you feel you sometimes don't understand all the feelings you're experiencing? Are you overwhelmed by the wide range of feelings that you have, right? Because many times survivors aren't sure, because nothing's ever done. I mean, my God, like half the time, I would say 3/4 of the time, even when child sexual abuse is reported, the abuse just continues on because nobody will get that child any help. And that's what happened in my case. And the thing is even when it is reported, if the perpetrator is a family member, then there's nothing done about it. The family member will not have to do jail time, and even if they prove it, they will not have to do jail time. They'll allow the child to stay in the home if it's family members. See, this is how sick and twisted our society really is, that we would allow this, right? You know, this is just absolutely wrong, and it will never be right. Relationships. Where are your expectations of your partner in a relationship? These are things that survivors have a lot of problems with, right? Do you find it easy to trust others? Do you find difficulty in making commitments? Even when you're in a relationship, are you still lonely? Is it hard for you to allow others to get close to you? Do you find yourself in relationships with people who remind you of your abuser or is no good for you, right? Revictimization and all this. Self-confidence issues. People who are abused in any way may have a lot of self-confidence issues, but even people who are not abused have self-confidence issues. But it says, do you find it difficult to love yourself? Do you have a hard time accepting yourself? Are you ashamed of yourself? And do you have experiences or expectations of yourself that aren't realistic? In sexuality, do you enjoy sex? Do you find it difficult to express yourself sexually? Do you find yourself using sex to get close to someone? Does sex make you feel dirty, or are you present during sex, or are you away somewhere? This is huge problems for people. It was a huge problem for me. It completely. But I also grew up in a sexually abusive home. Well, my dad raped my mother in front of me when I was about 6 years old, probably about 5.5. And the reason I know these dates is because we moved. A lot of things happened. My parents moved, and I know the time frames, right? So I remember this stuff. This is pretty sad and pathetic, but there was a whole lot of sexual abuse going on in my home. And sex was always just a really bad thing to me. Somebody was always going to get hurt, you know what I mean? Because my mother was being raped repeatedly, not just once in a while. We're talking my dad. She was not sleeping with my dad, so he was just forcing himself on her, and marital rape, whatever you want to call it. He was forcing her. He was forcing her to have sex, and she did not want it. So she was beating him off and pushing him off, and he was beating her and forcing himself on her. He was raping her, and he raped her in front of me one time. Really lovely, great. So this is the kind of stuff I grew up around. A lot of sexual dysfunction, a lot of sexual abuse, and my dad was one of those people like to ogle the kids, ogle me and my sister, kind of like fondling and touching and stuff like this. A lot of sexual touching. Hated my dad, wanted him to die, wanted to kill him for years. And thought that he was the one that raped me and sodomized me, but actually my brother confessed to it, and I've had a lot of memories come back to me now that just totally have come completely back, and I realize now that it was my brother, and my brother confessed it to me anyway. But the thing is really sad, really, really sad. You know what I mean? That this type of sick, twisted behavior continues on and on and on, right? It's very, very sad that people will not get themselves some help. That people who are mentally ill and who are sick and perverted wouldn't get themselves some help before they hurt and harm a child. You would think that they would care enough. But see, my abuser dad is mentally ill. He's schizophrenic. He's got borderline personality problem. He's got borderline personality disorder. Plus he's got personality problems. Like he's completely messed up, right? But if you met him, you'd think he was the nicest person on the planet, right? But you don't want to leave him alone in a room with your kids. You know what I'm saying? It's not a good idea. You know what I mean? The guy, he's a perv, right? So it's like, it's sad and true. It's just sad. It's the truth. It's what it is. My parents were brought up on charges. They diagnosed my parents with all kinds of stuff. My parents were completely not capable of looking after us, and the system knew that. And they said, well, the only way that we could stay in the home was if my parents had complete counseling and therapy and treatment and all this stuff. And the kids were going to have treatment. And so my parents went to 2 counseling sessions. This was all verified by my older siblings and other people that knew the family. And then we promptly, after the 2 sessions were over and the social workers kind of stopped coming around, my parents moved to Canada. We were out of sight, out of mind. And the abuse just kept on going and going and going, and my parents were just as sick and twisted at the end as they were when I was born, and before I was born. And this kind of stuff has been allowed to go on forever, and it still is, right? And this is so incredibly wrong. And when are we as a society going to stand up and say, okay, enough is enough? Let's start educating. See, everybody that's on the earth right now that's abusing children, there's nothing we can do about them. They're a waste of time, right? They're really, honestly, and that's sad to say, but it's true. There's no help for them. There's no hope for them. Thing is they're going to all have to die off, right? Some just natural causes, whatever. And the younger generations, we're going to have to reach them. We're going to start reaching these kids that are just going into kindergarten right now, because they're not seeing any good examples at home. They're watching all kinds of perverse stuff on TV. They're watching all kinds of perverse stuff in the living room with their mom and dad or whoever's looking after them. They're watching perverse stuff with their older siblings, other neighbor kids, you name it. And then what they're going to do is they're going to take that all the way up until high school. Then they're going to have kids and they're going to do all kinds of sick and disgusting things to their children too. Guaranteed. We are going to have to reach the younger generations and let all these old people die off, right? These people who are even my age. Sick individuals who think it's just fine to go ahead and abuse children in whatever way they want, right? There is a lot of people out here who think it's just great to bash a child's head in, and also to sexually use a child, right? This is common knowledge, people. There's all kinds of people out here that think it's okay to do this stuff, just fine. That's why we have children ending up dead. That's why we have children ending up in the hospitals due to abuse-related injuries. That's why we have children laying around in their bedrooms right now because they've just been raped and sodomized and nobody's going to get them any help. Nope. Because this is a sick and twisted world we live in, and we all know that. So we have to change it, and really how are we going to do that? With the younger generations. We really are going to have to reach them and show them a different way. Some healthy parent-child relationships, how to deal with things, how to cope. If you have these sexual tendencies and you want to use a child, don't. You know what I mean? Just don't. Go find some other way to take care of it, but don't do that to a child. There has got to be something done, and it's going to happen with these younger generations, because I'm telling you, anybody pretty much past the age of 15 is pretty well hopeless as far as I'm concerned. We're going to have a whole another however many generations, 10 to 15 generations of really screwed up people. But what I'm hoping is that the work that we do now, the work because we are implementing stuff into the schools, right? It's just not every school, it's not every state, it's not every province, it's not everywhere. It's just certain schools who have the balls to stand up and say, yep, let's do it, are implementing some really great programs into their schools to teach children that, no, child abuse is wrong. There's other ways to handle it. You do not have to hurt your child. You do not have to sexually use your child. There are other ways to handle things, If you have all kinds of sexual perversions, I don't know. Go figure it out. Go do something else, you know what I mean? But don't be doing your child, right? Because this is just incredibly wrong. And, as far as anger management, they're really starting to work with kids to teach them about, no violence and let's stop this. And this is great, but you know what? It's not every school. It's not every town. It's not every city. It's a school here and there. But you know what? It's better than nothing. Because right now we're still in dark ages. People don't even want to hear from me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. I give people my card when I go out. And I say, well, I'm Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. I'm a child abuse advocate and I'm really out here trying to prevent child abuse. And they give me my card back. They don't even want to touch it. They're afraid to touch my card. They're like, oh, God, if I touch this, it means that I have to get involved. Oh, no thanks. It is the most unpopular thing you can think of doing. You will not have any friends, except for the people that actually are doing this work. They'll be your friends, but nobody else will, right? And it's a sad, pathetic world we live in. I'm telling you it is. You know what I mean? Like, you will not be popular, and people will not like you, and they will not be happy to see you when you want to talk about stopping and preventing child abuse. Because this world is still so far in the dark ages with their heads stuffed up their ass that they can't even begin to see the light. And this is a sad, sad truth. And that's why I hope my shows are allowed to stay on here for a long, long time. I really would like my shows to be supported and stay on this Blog Talk site for forever. I want people to listen to this. I want people to realize that there are a few people out here who have balls enough to stand up and say this stuff. You know, and stick up for kids. I mean, my God, we have all kinds of people out here just thinking it's fine to kill a child. No, it's not. You know, it's fine to rape a child. No, it's not. You know, oh, it's fine to slap a kid around and call him names. No, it's not. Or it's just fine to chain him up and starve him. Well, it's not okay. None of that stuff is okay. And when are we going to wake up and smell coffee? You know what I mean? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And it just frustrates me because you see the lack of care in people. You know, working with Dream Catchers for Abused Children, a lot of people who listen to my shows are my friends, obviously, and I thank you so much, you know, for spending the time to bother to take that kind of time to spend listening to what I have to say. I appreciate it very much. You know, this is the issue. Like, I mean, I have people who support Dream Catchers for Abused Children. These are the people that care. You know, these are the people that actually do care. There are people out here who do care and who want to see things changed and who are lobbying the government and who are, you know, working to get these laws changed and who are working with abused children to try to help them. There are some really, really good people out here. And even those people within the system that doesn't work, you know, there's some good people there too. There's good people trying to do some good work. But we really need everybody in on it. You know, people that are not afraid to stand up and say, stop child abuse. You know, like, I want to get a jacket. I'm going to get a jacket, and I'm going to put big, big words on it. Stop child abuse. And I'm going to put, like, huge so you can't miss it. Because it's winter up here most of the year where I live. And we only have a good couple of months of warm weather. The rest of it's cold. You need a jacket. And so wearing a T-shirt up here just doesn't help. Because you have to pretty much have a sweater on or a jacket on all the time up here. So I'm going to get a jacket, and I'm going to wear it. And I'm going to wear it everywhere. I'm going to wear it on the C train. I'm going to wear it everywhere, all over Calgary. Calgary's a big city, you know, because this is so people need to start doing this. Put up lawn signs in your lawn. I don't have a lawn, otherwise I'd put some signs up. You know, like do something. But these little yellow flags and little yellow ribbons don't cut it. It's got to be something big that people can see. You know. Well, you won't be very. Your house will probably be egged. I don't know if you necessarily want to take the risk. You know what I mean? They probably vandalize your house or something. Society's still so much in the dark ages about this, and it's 2011. You know why? Because they don't care about kids, and to society, kids are just expendable. Who cares? So many kids die. Well, whatever. No, honestly, that's what the problem is. People just don't care. They really don't. So they just killed their baby. Oh, well, no big deal. No, it is a big deal. It's a big deal for me. I can't have children. Why? Because I was raped and sodomized at the age of 8 years old. You know what I mean? And besides that, I was beaten and tortured half my life. You know, so it could have been a combination of a lot of different things. You know what I mean? But I seriously think, you know, it was the damage from the sexual abuse. So the issue is, well, that's what my gynecologist told me anyway. But anyway, the thing is, you know, I can't have kids. You know, and you know, well, that's a shame. But you know what? I care about these kids out here, and I cared about myself. I don't think that I deserve to be treated the way I did. I cared about every person that I ever knew that was ever abused. I don't think that they deserved to be treated that way, and so therefore, I care about all these kids out here. You know, and why people don't is beyond me. And for those people, I just can't wait till they all die off, you know, and let's just have a better world, because there's a lot of sick people on this planet that just need to just go away, so that the rest of us can just have a good life. Because this is ridiculous that we should have to put up with people and their stupid attitudes about children. This makes me sick. I mean, I have family members who think it's okay to hurt a child. And one of my siblings thinks it's fine to kill a child, beat a child, did to his own child. So there you go. And one of my other siblings thinks it's fine that my brother raped me and sodomized me, and then my mother abused the shit out of me. She thinks that's great, right? I can't even have my family around me. I can't even allow them into my life. They're no longer welcome. They're like dead to me. Because I cannot tolerate that anymore. I just won't allow it in my life, right? We have to stop this. It has to be us, right? Thanks everybody for listening to my rant here tonight, but I really appreciate you all taking the time to tune in. You know, get involved locally, whatever you got to do. You know what I mean? But just make sure you do get involved and protect your own children, for God's sakes. Watch out for your own kids and other kids that are around you, and make sure that there's no pervs trying to use them sexually, and make sure nobody's abusing them emotionally, psychologically, physically. You know, make sure that nobody's messing with the kids, right? So thanks everybody for being here. I'll be back on tomorrow, worldwide epidemic of child abuse and human rights abuses, as well as my show on Sunday, Mount Bethel Christian Worship Bible Study, Getting Real with God, and also starting next week, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. So if you need some information that I might have, you get a hold of me here on Blog Talk Radio. And otherwise, you can contact me just about everywhere. I'm on Facebook and whatnot. If you need some information, please do get a hold of me. I have all kinds of info. So have a great night, everybody. Take good care of yourselves. I wish you a really good weekend, and thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.